Alright, what's up y'all, LakerFan here. As looks about title of today's video, here to rank all the takeover perks in NBA 2K23, so I hope y'all enjoy. If you do, for to drop a like, so if you're new to noties, all good stuff, and like always, try to win 2,000 likes. Now, I have these completely in just the order that it shows in the game from left to right, in top to bottom, so I don't want to give away anything as far as where things are ranked. It's very obvious, though, that things like Accelerator are going to be extremely high on this list. Alright, so we're going to get straight into this. We're going to go from bottom to top, aka we're just going to rank them from F and then go up to E, then to D, C, B, A, and S. So, at the very bottom of this list is going to be Suppressor. This is absolutely, bar none, the worst takeover perk in the entire game. All it does is drop the opponent's ratings when they are on takeover. And by that, it doesn't mean that you drop their ratings even lower than it's supposed to be when they're just default. It literally just means you cut their ratings that they gain from takeover slightly, like in half or so. And it's not worth at all. The fact that this perk only works when the person you're guarding is on takeover, and then their takeover still works the exact same way. It doesn't decrease the length of the takeover lasting or anything like that, and it doesn't slow them down from getting their takeover. So Suppressor is by far the worst takeover perk in the entire game. This honestly should not even be a thing. It catfishes people into thinking they're actually doing something with their takeover perk when this is literally the worst one I could ever think of. Also, by the way, even though I didn't already mention this in the early part of the video, these are color coded, so the red ones are the defensive ones that show up as red as the takeover perks, and the green ones are the ones that show up green. So the defensive ones are obviously the reds, like we said. But moving along into the E tier, we have Stay Warm. This is going to be the one that makes it so you don't lose as much takeover for turnovers or bad shots, reach-ins, all types of stuff like that. It's okay for some situations. Like I said, if you're a point guard and you're very turnover prone, it's definitely decent. If you're someone who's maybe a lockdown and you get a lot of reach-ins, it's also kind of decent, but it doesn't stop you entirely from losing takeover. It just halts it a little bit or reduces the amount. And at the end of the day, it's not good, but it's definitely at least worth running compared to Suppressor, where this is just complete garbage. But for Stay Warm, it's okay. It's in the E tier, obviously, for a reason. But like I said, pretty bad takeover perks, so we're just going to move along. Into the D tier, we have Minimizer and Second Chance. So this is where we start to get into some of the runnable takeover perks, or at least worth running. So for Second Chance, what I have in mind, or my vision behind what this takeover perk would be good for in the grand scheme of things, like let's say you had access to all takeover perks, and yet you still choose to run Second Chance. The perk that this gives you, ironically, no pun intended, but the pro that this gives you for running this perk is that if you were to try and collect your takeover, or maybe be very selective with when you want to pop your takeover in a game, like let's say for Pro-Am, maybe you and your teammates have a lot of different ball handler or scoring options and stuff like that, and you're very content with holding on until late in the fourth quarter to activate your takeover so you can take over the game where it actually matters. That's where this could come into play, because if you try and do something like that as a regular player who doesn't have this takeover perk, you will run the risk of losing that takeover entirely. Not to mention, you can definitely try and save up for double while doing this too. While you are saving up for double, you still get those residual upgrades to your attributes for holding on to your takeover, whereas if you used it and then it fizzled all the way out, you're now back to all the way to square one with no ratings being boosted. So Second Chance is something at least worth thinking about running, but you have to be very content with not activating your takeover even when it's available. And I would definitely advise for you to be a player that actually gets a lot of takeover progress, yet doesn't choose to pop the takeover. So again, it's in the D tier for the reason of when you get takeover, you would like to activate it. But again, you can be very selective with when you want to pop it, and you can still collect those attribute upgrades without actually having to utilize your takeover and activate it. So that's in the D tier. It's not great, but it's definitely usable. For Minimizer, this is also an interesting one. So let me give my best example of Minimizer. This was actually probably an A tier takeover, or even an S tier, when the 3v3 heater mode was going on. It was the one I made a couple videos on where everybody starts the game with your takeover activated. This is such a good thing to have in there, but it's really just there specifically. That's all I have to say about it. You could be a versatile defender, however, and just to explain to people what this does as well. When you have this takeover perk on, when you're guarding someone that's on their takeover, they will drain faster. It'll make it their takeover literally just go away faster. And that's the whole perk to it. It's definitely decent, but obviously it's very specific with having to guard someone that's on takeover. If you're just a throwaway defender and you're the worst defender on the team and you're going to try and utilize this, I don't really recommend it, because then if the offensive focal point that they have gets on takeover, you're not going to be the one guarding him. So the only thing that really benefits you is maybe if you're a corner defender and the other team has a lockdown on takeover or something like that, and he's spotting up in the corner. That's where it can be a little bit utilizable. It's at least reasonable to have that. But for me, this is a takeover perk I would only really consider running in that heater event where everybody starts their takeover from the beginning of the game. This goes hard in there too, for sure. But Other than that, I'm not a huge fan of it, other than if you're a really versatile defender or maybe a tall big man who guards corner, and maybe you can drain a lockdowns takeover, like I said. But other than that, it's pretty mid. All right, so next up we have Decelerator. This is the complete counter to Accelerator. Now, I run this on the 1v1 court as far as the Accelerator, but the opponents that I play sometimes have Decelerator because it's a little bit easier to get. I believe it's through the Mamba mentality or the Chris Brickley workouts and stuff like that. So this is definitely like a one-to-one comparison. If you have Decelerator, it cancels the other person's Accelerator. Now, for me, I am on a contact dunking build. So when I go against people that have Decelerator, it's constantly draining the amount of takeover that I get, or at least reducing or minimizing, I should say. Where if I try and get those dunks, or I just am dunking near them with anybody around me, Decelerator is going to get me less takeover for every dunk. And that stuff definitely adds up. But against shooting builds, it may be a little bit tougher. You would have to get into those chase down areas and maybe just be near the person enough when they're dunking the ball. Because honestly, the problem that you'll probably run into when running this takeover perk against a shooting build is that they're probably not hitting a whole lot of contested shots on you as far as from the perimeter. Again, this is maybe more of a defending slashers sort of takeover perk. It's really annoying from my perspective as someone with 25 3-pointer to go against someone that has Decelerator though. It's probably one of my biggest kryptonites as far as like frustrating on the 1v1 court, or even for that matter if someone matched up against me with it on 2v2, 3v3, Pro-Am, whatever the case may be. It really is frustrating to have someone guard me that has Decelerator, because even if I'm scoring, it's at a reduced rate of takeover gain. And I even had people like run this on me when I didn't have Accelerator on multiple different builds, from my post score to my slasher, all types of stuff like that. It gets frustrating, bro, really, when I get a lot of scores and don't get any takeover progress, especially when I wasn't running Accelerator. So definitely a C tier takeover perk. I think it's definitely better than all the ones below it, but it's nowhere near the ones above it that are still on this list. And this is where we get into that top 5 that are absolutely that upper threshold, upper echelon takeover perks. All right, now listen, when I reveal this, obviously a lot of you guys are going to have a little bit of rebuttals here. So I think Saboteur and Juice are some fan favorites. A lot of people love it for their play styles, whatever the case may be. If you're maybe a taller big man who can still run lock takeover, for instance, that's a huge boost to be able to run Juice, because if you're a taller big man, you maybe have around like 79 speed. Let's say you're a 6'11 or something like that, you have 79 speed, and you get to run lock takeover, which gives you speed boost on top of that. And then when you have Juice, it amplifies that even more. I'm not hating on any of these takeover perks at all for them being in the B tier. I just want to just notify you guys that they're nowhere near the level of these two over here. But they are still good. They're a little easier to get as well. Obviously, things like Juice, the quest is literally just 600 points in the park, I believe, maybe even 400 or something like that. I forget which one it is, but either way, it's just points throughout the week. As for Sponge, I believe this is Pro-Am games, like 50 of them throughout the course of a week. And then Saboteur, I forget what this is. I believe it's Park Games one. It's only like 50. So these two are very, very doable to get between Juice and Saboteur. With Extender and Accelerator, though, you have to complete the entire My Career, like all the storyline, to even unlock this stuff. So it's a little bit tougher to get these. I definitely think between the B tiers that Juice and Saboteur are probably the best. Let's talk about them. Obviously, we already talked about Juice, but for Saboteur, this is where if you get steals, good shot contest, blocks, anything like that, the person you're guarding is going to go on cold quicker, or you drain their takeover faster. So Saboteur is a really good one for locks. It's a great one for locks for that matter. When I was playing the 1v1 court on my, I think it's a 92 overall right now, the shooting build that has 95 steal, 93 block, all types of stuff like that, great perimeter defense, but only has 50 driving dunk. I run Saboteur on that build for 1v1, bro, people get put in the grave as far as really, really down on their takeover, and they get cold super quick. They lose their teammate grade super quick, because then when you have that like gold or Hall of Fame glove combined with Saboteur, you're dropping their takeover, which drops their ratings if they get way too deep into it. And then when they're on cold, drops their ratings even more. And when their ratings are dropped and they're moving really bad, they're much easier to steal the ball again. And when that happens, I'm just grading people out super, super reliably. So Saboteur, really good takeover perk. Like I said, it's like really high B. I think all of these are really high B. The truth about it is they're just not on the level of the ones that are in A or S, but I just had to clarify that. They are still very good though. This is a good B right here. I don't want you guys to see B and be like, really, you put Juice in B, you put Saboteur in B? I want to say too, Sponge is much better than Decelerator, and I feel like Decelerator is belonging in the C tier. So let's talk about Sponge. This is one of my favorite takeover perks. So for me, I now have Accelerator and Extender, so I don't really run any of these three down here below. There's really no reason to, in my opinion. But when I didn't have those two, these three were my constant rotation between just trying to play as a lock and test out Saboteur, Juice in some situations where I wanted to have 99 speed on my build that only had like really 84, 85, and then for Sponge, This is one of the, it's kind of Accelerator Junior. I made a video on this specifically where I was playing rec runs with the stream and stuff like that. And the thing about Sponge is, let's say you're just a role player sitting in the corner on offense and your point guard is running pick and roll with your center. The point guard passes down to the center and gets an assist on the center's bucket down low, and he gets points for himself. You not only get Sponge off of the point guard's assist, but you also get Sponge off the big man's dunk. And I am telling you, that goes such a long way. Not to mention either, let's say your big man with like Hall of Fame anchor or something like that, or even bronze for that matter, gets a block. You get takeover off that block, but you get even more with Sponge amplifying that as well. And then on top of that, you get takeover progress with your own takeover stuff. Like for instance, your points, your rebounds, your assists. It doesn't just cancel that stuff out. So it's residual effect of your teammates doing things. I was a huge fan of it. It's the only other takeover perk in the entire game that gets your takeover faster, and Accelerator is obviously the other one. So everything else, like Extender makes it last longer, Saboteur makes people like get theirs lost faster, Juice makes your ratings better on it, Decelerator makes them get it slower. Again, all of this stuff, like Sponge and Accelerator are the only two takeover perks that give you your takeover faster than you should, and Sponge is literally Accelerator Junior. So for anybody who thinks it doesn't belong in the tier of the same as Saboteur and Juice, you're tripping. I think it really is up there with them, and they're all three a very high upper echelon B tier. But anyway, moving forward, as we can tell, obviously, Extender was going to be the A tier, Accelerator S tier. I think it's very obvious, and this looks pretty non-negotiable, non-debatable if you ask me. I know some people, like I said, will still make the case that Juice or something like that, Saboteur, are on the same level as Extender. I highly, highly disagree. When it comes to like rec 5v5 situations, Extender is supreme. I think it's really even up there with Accelerator. The thing is, obviously for 1v1, where it's quicker games, or maybe you can't get your takeover and it's not, the game's not going to last that long, Extender then becomes something that's not as worth. 2v2 and 3v3, I think definitely can still be made a case that Extender is much better than these three down here. But again, it shines so much more in 5v5 settings where it's super long games. Extender goes crazy. I've done statistics on this. If you want to see the power of Extender and how good it actually is, I believe that the numbers were Tonic's takeover lasted about 5.5 possessions, whereas my takeover lasted 9 even. So long story short, it lasted literally 4 more shot clocks than his did, and about 4.5 for that matter. But regardless, Extender, really, really good. I'm a huge fan of it. And I don't want to keep on repeating myself as far as talking about how I believe Extender is much better than these three down here, but I've used all 5 of them at a very, very high rate. I've used all 5 of them on my builds. I see it through the lens of any player as well, and I really do believe that these two are much better than these 3 down below. But these 5 in total are so much better than the ones below this. I really do think, and to be fair, they give you a lot of these through like the Chris Brickley workouts. Like I believe 4 out of these 5 down here are literally just earned through the Brickley workouts. And honestly, it's pretty obvious that they did it for a reason, because they know that these 5 up here are by far the best. So let's talk about Accelerator as the #1 takeover perk in the game. This is unbelievable. I mean, from blocks to just like dunks, 3-pointers, whatever leads to your takeover. When I run double/take, I can literally get takeover in just 3 dunks. Nothing else. No blocks, no steals, no rebounds, no assists, nothing like that. Literally just dunk, dunk, dunk. And that goes such a long way, bro. I'm not even joking. Like, Accelerator is just unbelievable. And I think if you debate that, you're just wrong. I'll let you, like, speak your mind when it comes to Saboteur, Juice, Sponge, maybe being on the same tier as Extender. But, oh, man. Accelerator? No, not a chance, bro. This is just head and shoulders above everything else. And that's why I wanted to put these on 2 different pedestals. Because Extender, in my opinion, is better than these 3. And then Accelerator is better than Extender and much better than these 3. But these 3 are so much better than Decelerator and everything else below. So I think I have everything right where I want it to be. This is my true like opinions, and I think this is very accurate. But again, feel free to just debate it in the comments. I know obviously like a lot of these takeover perks are fan favorites. Maybe you're someone that this is the one takeover perk that you have on all your builds for Juice, and that you just ride for it super hard. And same goes for Sponge. That was me. I was really riding for Sponge super hard, and I think it's reasonable too. But let's be realistic with it. I don't think it's on these 2 levels. But anyway, feel free to leave your feedback in the comments, as I said earlier. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, sub if you're new, turn on noties, all the good stuff. Let's try this one to 2,000 likes. If you made it to the very end of the video and you just want to show support that you did, put perk or put take in the comments, show support you made all the way through. But anyway, I know it was a pretty short video. I didn't talk about the ones at the bottom very long because they don't really deserve to be talked about for that long. Suppressor is so bad. I've never seen something in a video game that's worse than this. Maybe Pass Fake Maestro and Pump Fake Maestro. That's about not it. I'm telling you guys, Suppressor is so bad. If you ever see anybody with this, ask them why they have it on, because I'm very positive they have at least one of these other 4 right here unlocked. So, I don't know. But anyway, if you guys want to see the Takeover tier list video after this too, feel free to drop a comment, tell me to drop a Takeover tier list, because I definitely want to, but I don't want to spam these videos out way too much. Obviously, I've been doing a lot of tier list videos, from the finishing to the shooting, playmaking, defense, now the Takeover perk, and then if we do the Takeover as well, that's literally 6 of them, probably in the last like 8-9 days or something like that. So I don't know. If y'all aren't really messing with like the super spam of it, I will definitely just wait to make that video. But if you do want to see that, like I said, leave it in the comments, let me know. I will probably only not do it if you guys tell me not to, to be honest. So definitely just voice your opinion on that. But anyway, that's all for the vid. Hope y'all enjoyed. On that, take it easy, man. Peace.